welcome on this very happy occasion when we celebrate the renaming of the old arts block into the A.C. Jordan building. I know that this ceremony and this commemoration was meant to take place some time ago, but it is one of those pleasant happenstances that it gives the humanities faculty in the year 2018 two opportunities to celebrate great African scholars who have had different relationships to this institution. Here in first semester, on this occasion, we'll be celebrating A.C. Jordan, and in the second semester, we'll be celebrating Archie Mfeji. So, on the other imagine happening in the same year. It's my pleasure to welcome on this occasion representatives of the Jordan family, Mr. Hallo Jordan, and Ms. Patience Jordan, Mr. Ayanda Jordan, Mr. Chikwere Jordan, Mr. Maklangabeza Jordan, and Mr. and Mrs. Nduna. And on behalf of from UCT, our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Alex Price, the Chair of the Naming and Buildings Committee, Advocate Norman Aronson, and our Registrar, Mr. Worston Pillay. And speaking to us later, the current A.C. Jordan Chair of African Studies, Professor Nobusile Nsibetso. So I'd like first to invite the Registrar, Mr. Worston Pillay, to give us an overview of the background to the naming of buildings and landmarks at UCT.
Good evening, everybody. Allow me firstly to amplify the welcome that the Dean has extended to all of you, specifically to, particularly to members of the Jordan family, to colleagues, to students and friends of the University of Cape Town. Welcome. A.C. Jordan is an iconic name for many at UCT and of course beyond. Few have the ability to combine at any one time a multiplicity that includes being an author, a scholar, a linguist, a poet, a musician, a humanist, a freedom fighter, and a decent human being. A.C. Jordan had that ability. A torch bearer, a standard bearer, and a role model for many who had the privilege of knowing him. Equally so, a torch bearer, a standard bearer, and a role model for many who did not have the privilege of knowing him, but who had come to know of him. Naming a building in his name is testimony to the fortitude, to the values, and to the vision of A.C. Jordan. So when we speak about values, and we link it back into the UCT system and how our system works and what we look for and consider in making these naming decisions, values obviously feature very, very prominently. It is stating the obvious almost when I say that renaming decisions are not neutral acts. They can never be. What they represent to us are the markers of how an institution like UCT is grappling with who we are, where we have come from, and where we are headed. They represent an institution that is in deep and ongoing and necessary discussion with itself. And this is one example of where talking to oneself is not a sign of madness, but the sign of doing what is necessary, because our times have imposed such a responsibility on all of us. And in having this institutional discussion, we are in fact seeking recourse to the guidance and the wisdom of those who have gone before, and whose life journey, so impactful, is defined by a capacity to envision a future many, many years hence, to a future that is self-sustaining, because it is born of the values that put us in a better space to where we were before. So the naming of buildings at this university is an outcome of the following considerations. We make every effort to ensure, the chair of the Naming and Buildings Committee is right here, so he can correct me if I'm wrong. We make every effort to ensure that the names of buildings contribute to the university's transformation project. It recognizes the immense symbolic power of names, and naming must always be approached with care, recognizing that in general, that the names will be long-standing, if not permanent. And if short-lived, that itself will be a commentary on the wisdom of the decisions that we make. Names, as decided on, must signal a break from a past pattern, and we look for names that give substance to this university's commitment to celebrate our location in Africa and our historical context. So, example of some new names that have been proposed and then decided. They are outcomes of the kinds of considerations that I've made reference to, and clearly an indication of the regard that the name, the A.C. Jordan building, encapsulates. And some of the names that the university, through its governance structures, through its consultation processes, has decided on, include in 2006 the Steve Biko Students' Union Building, and Borikwacho, which is the San word for mountain of the sea. In 2007, the Grasha Michel Hall. In 2009, Shlangenani, which means to unite, and the Ivan Toms Building. In 2012, the Dalakoma Hall. In 2014, the Alan Cormack House. In 2015, Masingeni, meaning welcome, or come in. 2015, Neville Alexander Building. And of course, recently, the Chris Hani Building. The names extend beyond buildings per se, they also extend to roads. So we have the Sissy Gould Mall in May 2010, which involved a name change, and in 2014, the Madiba Circle, which appropriately circles the upper campus. So we add A.C. Jordan to that list. Confident that due care has been given to the rationale for this choice. And this is an important marker along the path of UCT's ongoing journey. And our profound gratitude goes to the Jordan family, particularly to Palo, and the late Dr. Phyllis, Priscilla, Chantala Jordan, for allowing UCT the privilege of the name. Thank you.
I invite the VC, Dr. Max Price, to speak about the renaming of the building in the context of transformation at UCT.
Thank you, Dean. Welcome to all of you, and especially to the Jordan family. And it's a great pleasure to reach this point. As the family knows, we've been trying to do this since about 2014, when we made the decision. We needed to find the right time, and I think this is the right time. In response to a question on why he had left Fort Hare to join UCT in 1946, A.C. Jordan said, quote, "I'm going to UCT to open that door, the UCT door, and keep it ajar, so that our people too can come in. UCT on African soil belongs to us too. UCT can and never will be a true university until it admits us too, the children of the soil. I'm going there to open that door and keep it ajar." End quote. This quote speaks so deeply to what UCT is seeking to achieve in renaming important buildings and spaces on our campuses, and it seemed fitting to open this evening's event with those important words. Archibald Campbell Mzolisa Jordan was an academic pioneer and torchbearer for African scholarship and African literature and linguistics. Today we honour his legacy through this renaming ceremony. Jordan is remembered in UCT history as the institution's first Black African lecturer, appointed in 1946 in the aftermath of the Second World War, when the colonialist grip on the continent was beginning to loosen. In 1940, he had begun working on a novel that was to become a landmark in Isimpaza literature, called The Wrath of the Ancestors, an epic about the conflict between Western-style education and traditional beliefs. He later translated this into English, and it was then also translated into Afrikaans and Dutch. After completing his primary and secondary education, Jordan won a scholarship to the then Fort Hare University College, where he obtained a teacher's diploma in 1932 and later a BA degree in 1934. Then followed a 10-year teaching stint at Kroonstad High School in the Free State, where he mastered Sesotho, and his leadership prowess came to the fore when he was elected president of the Orange Free State African Teachers Association. In a South Africa that was deeply divided and where only English and Afrikaans were the recognized languages, Jordan made his mark as a writer and scholar of isiXhosa and other vernacular black languages. In 1956, that's 10 years after he had started as a lecturer, he became the first black African scholar at UCT to obtain a PhD. Considering the prevailing conditions at that time, this is undoubtedly a feat that could not have been easy. His thesis, which was called A Phonological and Grammatical Study of Literary Xhosa, won the coveted Vilakazi Memorial Prize for Literature by the University of the Witwatersrand for the meritorious contribution to Singuni literature. He was widely regarded as an esteemed intellectual pioneer of African studies in South Africa. And it is therefore very apt that we converge here today to rename the Arts Building the A.C. Jordan Building in recognition of an exceptional scholar that he was and the sterling role that he played. And of course, I'm not summarizing his career and his curriculum vitae after he left South Africa, where he did most of his scholarship outside of the country. As the registrar said, the renaming of buildings at UCT is just one part of a multifaceted transformation project committed to overcoming the legacy of apartheid and colonialism in the university system. This transformation project encompasses different aspects. Amongst other things, it's changes to the demographic profile of the student body, changes to the demographic profile of the staff of the university, especially the academic staff, changes to teaching and learning, including the curriculum, and perhaps the most difficult, changes to the institutional culture, which includes things like the symbols around the campus, the artworks, what we show and display on the walls, the names of buildings and spaces. We've been on this road for some 2 decades at least, including under the vice-chancellorships of other leading black scholars, Professor Mampela Rampele, Professor Njibula Ndebele, who were both leading scholars and followed in A.C. Jordan's footsteps here at UCT. But there is undoubtedly still a long way to go towards establishing UCT as a fully inclusive institution of higher learning, where students and staff see themselves, their cultures, their values, their heritage, and knowledge systems reflected in the university which they inhabit. The renaming of the Arts Block is therefore, on the one hand, a tribute to A.C. Jordan, to a great scholar, to the first black African doctoral graduate of UCT, the first black lecturer at UCT. So it's about honoring and revering an individual, but equally, it's about what it says about the university when we choose to name a building after him. It's about transformation, and it's about making the university a more inclusive space where students recognize their heritage and other role models that are like them in the university's environment. So just alluding briefly to some of those, I was going to list the buildings that had been renamed, but the registrar has done that, so I won't repeat that. What he didn't, I don't think, mention was perhaps one of the most significant, which was Jamison Hall, because the transformation and renaming of buildings is not only about giving buildings that have sort of non-names, bad names like the Arts Block, named with other names, but it's also about interrogating the names that have been given to buildings in the past. And the university had decided, the council agreed to change the name of Jamison Memorial Hall, and at the moment it's known as Memorial Hall, and there is a proposal that it should come to be called the Sarah Bartman Memorial Hall, but that is still a proposal under consultation. by the Naming and Buildings Committee with local communities. Next month we will have a renaming ceremony for the new Science Lecture Theatre, which will be named in honour of the South African icon Chris Hani. A transformed university, how would we know when we have a transformed university? I think that the sign, the symptom that we have a transformed university will be one in which we no longer hold stereotypical views of others based on gender or sexual orientation or race or disability. How does one dissolve such stereotypes? These stereotypes may be dissolved and need to be dissolved because we have consciously overcome them by surfacing them, thinking about them, interrogating our own attitudes and becoming conscious of them. But also, and perhaps more importantly, because the generalizations that give rise to stereotypes no longer apply, they are no longer valid. And it's part of overcoming those stereotypes that the renaming the buildings achieves, because it makes visible the academic role models from diverse backgrounds so that students in this university come to see that diversity of academic leadership. It's a great pleasure then to be gathering today with the Jordan family and with members of the university community to witness the official renaming of the building after their founding member. Thank you.
I invite Professor Lucille Zabetza, the current A.C. Jordan Chair, to speak about Professor A.C. Jordan as a person, a scholar, and a political activist.
Good evening. I was dragged out of my sabbatical leave to come and perform my military duty. The late Professor Archibald Campbell Zolisa Jordan was in many ways a pioneer, that has been said, and a visionary. He was amongst the first cohort of African scholars to advance literary work, critically engaged in African studies, and wherever he went, not just at the UCT, fought for the rights of Black academics, opening doors and keeping them ajar, as the VC has said. Jordan started his career as a teacher in 1928 at the age of 22 years. At the end of that year, he left teaching to further his studies at Fort Hare, resuming his teaching career after completing his BA in 1934. He taught at Hilltown High School for 6 months before leaving for the Bantu United School in Kronstadt, in the then Orange Free State, now called Free State, where he taught for 9 years and 6 months. He resigned from this school at the end of 1944 for a lectureship position at Fort Hare. At Fort Hare, Jordan stepped into the shoes of Professor Davidson Don Tengo Jawafa and taught in the Department of Bantu Languages. Sorry, those are the terms that they used there in the university. His association with Fort Hare, however, was short-lived. In 1946, as we have heard, he was appointed lecturer in Bantu languages here at UCT. Jordan came to UCT already well published. This is what he wrote in his letter of application dated 27 September 1945. Xhosa is my mother tongue. I have made a valuable contribution to the literature of this language by means of a novel entitled Visi Ingumbo Eminyanya. You're scared not to see that. That's the role of the ancestors. I have a manuscript consisting of short stories and essays awaiting publication at Lovedale. Since my arrival at Fort Hare, I have written and produced a play. I am at present writing a novel, which is likely to be as great a success as its predecessor. Unquote. He was highly recommended by his former principal in Kronstadt, Mr. Tingo, Rationale Tingo, in the following words. I attribute his success as a teacher to A, his systematic preparation of his work. That's lecturers should listen. B, extensive and scholarly reading of his subjects. C, his keen interest in his work and his conscientiousness. And fourthly, the systematic attention he always paid to his students and their difficulties and weaknesses. In 1956, as we have heard, he obtained a PhD at UCT. In the same year, he was appointed as acting head of the Department of Bantu Languages for a period of 3 months. Jordan did not restrict his intellectual prowess to the classroom and our lecture hall. He was what we would today refer to as an engaged scholar. He belonged to a political tendency in South Africa that was known for its intellectualism, a non-European unity movement. His intellectual engagement with people like Enikis and Uputalo reminded me that also Hosea Jaffet in the Journal of the Teachers League of South Africa on the issue of language is a pleasure to read. I would encourage you to read those journals. He also wrote for the Journal of the Cape African Teachers Association. The clampdown on political opposition to apartheid in 1960 made Jordan to think hard about his future in South Africa. He eventually left on an exit permit in 1962. He taught at the University of California at Los Angeles, and in 1963 was appointed to a professorship at the University of Wisconsin, where he taught African languages until his untimely death on the 20th of October 1968. He was 61 years. The following extract from the memorial resolution of the faculty of the University of Wisconsin, Madison campus, dated 2nd December 1968, sums up the caliber of the man and his commitment to his work and students. This is what his colleagues said. He was a great teacher, a famed writer, a renowned scholar, a warm and friendly colleague. His deep sense of humanity, his efforts to free scholarship of narrowness and prejudice, his vision, his wit and charm, his devotion to his students, that is the measure of the man. This is his achievement. Unquote. We are told that a prophet is not without honor, except in his own town, amongst his relatives, and in his home. This seems to apply to A.C. Jordan with respect to UCT. When he passed away in 1968, no commemoration that I am aware of was arranged here at UCT. 1968 is also the year that the UCT Council rescinded the appointment of the late Professor Achimofeja This, in many ways, tell us something about where UCT was those days. However, things started changing. As we have been told, in 1993, the A.C. Jordan Chair in African Studies was established to provide a meaningful study of Africa. Its current focus is to champion the integration of African studies into teaching and learning at undergraduate and postgraduate level within the various faculties at UCT. Hopefully, UCT will commit resources to bolster the chair. In 2014, as we are told, the Arts Block was renamed after A.C. Jordan. And it is this that brings us here today. Only yesterday, as I received a message from my colleague, Professor Anna Diomot, to the effect that the Mellon Foundation has accepted our proposal to hold a series of seminars exploring the legacies of A.C. Jordan. Presenters will be required to present written, innovative papers that are publishable, to add to the growing list of publications that UCT will no doubt need as it goes through its birth pangs of transforming itself. In response to the demands put on the table by students, in particular, in the last 3 years or so. Indeed, history rewards people of integrity and those who are principled. Thank you.
I invite Mr. Haller Jordan to speak on behalf of the family.
Thank you, Dean. I want to first recognize the Vice Chancellor and then friends and relatives who come here in the spirit of supporting me. And then others, I think, who come here for this occasion, the renaming of the Arts Block at UCT. And I think it's appropriate, on behalf of my family, I am the only living offspring of A.C. and Phyllis Jordan. My siblings have all passed on. But I do have with me here today my cousin, my aunt's daughter, Mrs. Duma, from Raga Township, and then some other relatives as well, who have been invited so graciously by the University of Cape Town. We want to thank, on behalf of the family, the Senate, the Council, and the faculty of the University of Cape Town for this occasion. We want to thank especially the student body here at UCT, who I'm told initiated this movement to decolonize our universities. I myself have a lot of personal differences with the pioneers of that movement. Their actions, their words, and maybe even their program. But I think they do deserve congratulation for taking a very important initiative with respect to South Africa's universities, and specifically with respect to this one. It used to be a joke in our day that arriving at this campus at UCT, one coming up the hill had to walk past Rhodes' statue, which used to be seated on the plinth down there, and I forget on which side his hat was, but of course either left or right. There were rude jokes about that hat. But you walk up the hill past Rhodes, and what faces you? Jefferson Memorial Hall. And people used to say, if you ever wanted a statement about British imperialism, this was it. And then if you looked right, there was Rhodes Memorial with his statue pointing north, saying the hinterland is there. Absolutely perfect statement. British imperialism. So I'm not surprised that the symbol that was attacked when the students initiated the decolonization movement was Rhodes' statue. I don't necessarily agree with the method that was used, but I think the statement that was made, everyone understood. I was also a little bit amused when first hearing about the movement to decolonize the academy. And my amusement was born of the fact that one tends to forget what the actual word, the very word academy, means. And it has a number of loaded meanings, and we tend to forget them and very rarely explore them. The word academy derives from akka, ancient Greek for away from, and demos, the people. So, academy is an institution which is away from the people. So, in a funny sort of way, what the students were saying was, we want this thing, which was created to be away from the people, to come back to the people. Yes? Sound. Yet it conceals yet another paradox, which I think, unfortunately, many of our students have not grasped. And unfortunately, our faculties in our South African universities have never transmitted to the student bodies. Very few know that the degrees our universities bestow, up to and including the very academic roles that are donned for such ceremonies, owe a lot to Africa and African intellectual achievements. Those degrees and those roles derive from the Islamic academic culture, which dominated the north of Africa and parts of the Mediterranean coast of Europe for something like 400 years. And, as we know, the first university in Europe, the University of Bologna, adopted them when it was established. So when we talk about the decolonization of the academy, I think we should bear a number of things in mind, that the academy is not foreign, alien to Africa, and also that the academy is intended to be something which is away from the people. Away from the people, I suppose, in the sense that you don't want all this sound and fury that is out there amongst the public to disturb your academic pursuit. But at the same time, too, the demand for decolonization is a demand that the university's purpose be for the people. though it is an institution that was built to be away from the people. When my late father, Archibald Campbell Jordan, accepted the post he was offered by UCT in 1946, there was an air of expectation in virtually every quarter. In South Africa, divided then racially, as it unfortunately still is today, such expectations too were very highly racialized. There were those who had their fingers crossed, saying beneath their breaths, "Oh, we hope he doesn't let our side down." Because there was a fear amongst many of the educated Africans that he won't be able to measure up. There was a fear also that coming to a nice place like Cape Town, you might be tempted into weird and wonderful habits. Cape Town then, as it is now, was the wine drinking center of South Africa. And there were terrible fears that AC will come here and he would get into the juice of Bacchus heaven and let the old side down. Fortunately for those who had such fears, he was almost a fanatical teetotaler. And I never discovered that AC touched liquor until we got to the United States. And he explained himself then in very funny terms, which I won't go into now. So, again, he's making up all those. But there were also those who silently prayed for his failure. And his failure would once again demonstrate the incapacity of Africans. In today's environment, it's very easy to forget that it took a degree of courage for the University of Cape Town to appoint an African academic to its staff. It's not as if there weren't qualified Africans at the time. There was Benedict Wallet Vilakazi at Witwatersrand, PhD in African languages. This, until Vilakazi's dying day, absolutely refused to appoint him to its faculty. Because after all, even though this was supposed to be quote-unquote an open university, it did practice because of the law. UCT too had its problems. I don't think, and I stand to be corrected, before the 1960s, the University of Cape Town Medical School graduated a single African doctor. I'd be surprised if it did. But if you heard the stories about the black doctors who trained at the medical school at UCT, you'd be quite shocked. Quite shocked. I asked one of the former faculty members, why put up with such outright bigotry? And he said, oh, can you believe it? When a white body, cadaver was brought into a lecture theatre, the black students expected to leave. Apparently, the anatomy of whites is slightly different from that of blacks. I wonder what those bigots would have done if a black doctor had come across a dying white person and said, oh no, I can't help this person, I don't know what anatomy is like. But anyway, it did take courage. And while we won't stint UCT for the steps it took then, and it took well into the 1950s, because after my father's appointment, there were other black academics who were appointed. Dan Kunene, Donnie van der Westhuizen in the English department, etc. But we also cannot suppress or conceal the exceedingly disappointing acts of omission that led to the departure of Dr. Dan Konene and others from the African Studies Department here at this university. The Achima Feje matter, which I think the university is now trying to address by naming one of his buildings after him, but that particular incident will always be a very dark stain on this university's reputation. The appointment of an African woman academic as this university's next vice chancellor, I think, is also testimony to the changes, quite radical, that our country is passing through right now. But I think the challenge facing our universities is not only accelerating transformation and remaking themselves, but also remaking themselves in a particular fashion. One would like to see the academic space in South Africa being transformed into the preeminent centers for the study of Africa and the peoples of this continent. African studies ought to be at the core of our universities, and not really one amongst many departments. When my dad and his generation entered the field of African studies, they saw it as an academic discipline which was to pursue an agenda that was both political and social. Their agenda was to transform African studies into a discipline that involved the study of the people of Africa, the African diaspora, not in order to assist colonial administrators in governing the natives, but as a discipline through which African academics would arm themselves and African students to strive for the emancipation of our continent and the people of African descent throughout the world. They had a very Pan-African vision, which embraced not only the African continent, but also the African diaspora. So in an ironic way, what took place when my father applied for a passport in order to take up a Carnegie grant in 1961, helped him to realize part of that vision, because he was compelled to leave South Africa illegally, and as we heard, won an academic post in the United States of America. One or two corrections. He didn't leave on an exit visa. It was an interesting adventure. Myself, cousin, my younger brother, drove him across the Botswana border. And I suppose originally, he might have had ideas of coming back to the country. This is 1961 after all. But of course, once you leave South Africa that way, I think they passed laws the following year. It wouldn't be easy to come back. So having arrived in Britain, South Africa, having left, well, thrown out to Commonwealth earlier that year, he could acquire British citizenship, and that's how he traveled to the United States. And it was in the United States that I think that attempt to realize the vision that they had as young people, he attempted to see it fulfilled. As has been said, A.C. Jordan was an engaged academic, and engaged intellectual. In addition to the Cape African Teachers Association, of which he was a member from the time he was in Freetown, he became president of the Orange Free State African Teachers Association. And on his return to the Cape, 4th year, he rejoined the Cape African Teachers Association and was instrumental in convincing the executive of that body to affiliate to the All African Convention, and in that manner to affiliate also to the Non-European Unity Movement. When the Iceland Commission was established in 1948, that was the commission that gave us the wonderful Bantu education system. The Cape African Teachers Association, along with other bodies, were asked to produce and give evidence to the Commission. The Cape African Teachers Association asked AC to prepare their submission to the Iceland Commission. It was, of course, ignored because Iceland and others had their own ideas about how Africans should be educated. We heard afterwards, because when he was refused that passport to travel to Britain and the US in 1961, the then Vice Chancellor of UCT went and spoke to ministers of government. I forget who was the Minister of Interior Affairs at the time. But apparently, what really stung were rude remarks my dad had made about Dr. Verwoerd at the public meeting in Cape Town, where he had compared Verwoerd's idea of civilization and culture with the attitude of a Transvaal cattle farmer. And he'd gone on to say, Verwoerd seems to think culture and civilization are a crazy land. If there are more people on it, there's less for everyone. So the best way to preserve quote-unquote white civilization and culture, there should be less people on the grazing land, keep the Bantus out. And that apparently stung. And when Professor Dewey spoke to the minister, this is one of the things he put us on the street. This is what this matters. So, some people can be very similar. Anyway, the important thing about today is that it is one more step in the transformation of the South African academic space. And I think it's something that AC would be extremely proud of, and he would be extremely proud of the fact that it was this university, which had had the courage to employ him way back then, that has taken this very important step. Once again, on behalf of the family, we want to thank the university, its faculty, and its students. Thank you.
The decision was taken a few years ago, and we put the plaque up a few years ago because there was no reason not to inform the campus. So today we are unveiling a copy of that plaque, which we're going to give to the family as a keepsake. There it is. We'll do some photographs before we actually hand it to you afterwards.
Now I invite Captain Norman Aronson to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Program Director. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, especially to Paulo and the Jordan family on this auspicious and special occasion. I don't have anything to say other than to just perhaps to repeat, not in exactly the same way, what Paulo said, which is that this is but a small step in the transformation and decolonization project that we are busy with here at UCT. It's not an easy project. It has its complexities, and there's a process of consultation which the VC has also referred to in relation to the memorial wall. But we have concluded the renaming of the arts block to the AC Jordan building. We are immensely grateful, and we share the values and the principles that the speakers, and especially Paulo, had referred to, that his late dad stood for. So we want to thank them for allowing us to attach the name to one of these buildings as part of our transformation decolonization project. It remains for me to thank especially the organizers for this event, for putting this together, and to thank you for taking the time to attend on behalf of the committee, the Naming of Buildings Committee, and on behalf of the University Council. Thank you very much for attending. You're welcome to stay for a drink and something to eat. And also, lastly, thanks very much, Paulo, and the Jordan family for attending here this evening. Thank you very much.